Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we crack open a book on this show, we're looking for, answers. We want to know how the brain works or the history of the Roman Empire. But today is different. We are not looking for answers. We're stepping into a labyrinth.
That is a very, very accurate description. We're looking at a text that essentially threatens to dismantle the way you perceive the world.
We are diving into the unfinished Encyclopedia of Jorge Luis Borges by Max and Claude. Now, if the title sounds a bit academic,
It is.
it really does. But don't let that fool you. This isn't a reference book.
Yeah.
You are not going to look up the boiling point of water in here.
No, if you're looking for facts, you're going to be severely disappointed. But if you're interested in a book that claims to catalog concepts that have no names,
Books that were never written.
and phenomena that only exist because someone described them,
Yeah.
then yeah, you're in the right place.
It's a wild premise. The authors present this as a found document, supposedly a collection of entries that the famous writer Jorge Luis Borges spent his life writing.
Or maybe just hallucinating.
Exactly. And right off the bat, the text gives us a warning. There's a prefatory note where the narrator, who sounds a lot like Borges, but admits he might not be, basically tells us to abandon all logic.
It sets the tone perfectly. The note explicitly states that the encyclopedia has no proper order.
Right.
The entries are simultaneously first and last. You can read it backward, forward. It doesn't matter. It's antilinear.
Which makes our job of structuring a deep dive a little tricky.
It does, but that's intentional. The author suggests that perhaps the world we call real, the world of traffic lights and taxes, is actually the messy draft.
And this encyclopedia, this is reality.
Exactly. It challenges us to stop thinking of fiction as something made up and start seeing it as a tangible force. The text says it contains entries describing actual things as if they were imaginary, and imaginary things as if they were actual.
It's a total mind bender. And our mission today is to navigate this mess without getting too lost. We're going to pull out the most brain-melting entries and see if we can make sense of a world made of words.
So where do we start?
Well, in a book with no beginning or end, what's the anchor?
I think we have to start with the concept that really anchors the whole Borgesian universe. It's the entry simply titled The Aleph.
The Aleph. Okay, let's unpack this. For anyone who maybe skipped their metaphysics class, this is defined in the text as a point in space, a tiny sphere, maybe 2 or 3 centimeters across.
That contains all other points in the universe.
All of them.
Think of it as a singularity of pure information. It's a spot where, if you look into it, you see everything in the universe from every angle simultaneously without any distortion.
And the entry recounts this specific experience. The narrator finds this thing in such a mundane place, a cellar on Guerre Street in Buenos Aires.
Right.
He's lying on the cold floor, in the dark, staring at the 19th step of the stairs, and suddenly, he sees everything.
And the description in the source is so visceral. It's not just a vague, I saw the cosmos. He sees the circulation of his own dark blood. He sees the coupling of levers.
He sees the earth inside the Aleph and the Aleph inside the earth.
It's the ultimate human desire, right? Total knowledge. Seeing everything without confusion.
But here's where it gets complicated. The source material mentions a specific difficulty with the Aleph, a logical problem.
Right. The recursion problem.
Explain that.
Well, if this tiny point contains the entire universe, then it must contain the cellar it's sitting in.
And if it contains the cellar,
Then it must contain the Aleph that is in the cellar.
and that Aleph contains the universe, which contains the cellar, which contains the Aleph.
It's infinite.
It's like standing between 2 mirrors, but instead of just your reflection, it's the entire cosmos repeating forever.
And the source material actually makes it darker. It mentions rumors of other Alephs, one in a mosque in Cairo, another inside a column in the British Museum.
Which breaks my brain a little. If you have multiple Alephs, and each one contains the whole universe, then the one in Buenos Aires must contain the one in Cairo.
And the one in Cairo contains the one in Buenos Aires.
Oh.
You end up with an infinite web of reflections. The narrator even mentions getting migraines where he sees an Aleph inside his own mind.
So it questions the very nature of space. If a single point can hold infinity, then size and distance are just, they're illusions.
Exactly. It makes you feel very small, but also weirdly connected to everything.
So if space is infinite in this book, then information must be too, which feels like the perfect bridge to the next major entry, and probably the most famous one.
The Library of Babel.
A classic.
It really is. So imagine a library, but not your local library. Imagine a library that contains all possible books.
The mechanics here are terrifyingly precise. The text describes these hexagonal galleries, stacked floor to ceiling, just going on forever. Each shelf has 35 books. Each book is 410 pages long.
And the library contains every single possible combination of the 25 written characters.
They even did the math in the source. The total number of books is 25 to the power of 1,312,000.
A number I can't even visualize that.
It's effectively infinite. It's larger than the number of atoms in the known universe, but technically...
It is finite. There is a limit.
But for a human being wandering those halls, it feels infinite. And here's the paradox that really stuck with me. Because the library contains every possible combination of letters, it contains everything.
Everything.
The true story of your death, the cure for cancer, the script for this deep dive we're recording right now.
It does. But, and here's the tragedy, it also contains millions of books that are just random gibberish.
Or worse.
Or worse. Books that are almost the truth but get one crucial fact wrong.
So for every book that gives you the cure for cancer, there's another book that looks identical but gives you a recipe for poison.
Precisely. The source material points out that total knowledge results in total ignorance. If you have everything, you can't find anything.
It mentions there are books that claim to be the catalog for the whole library.
But there are thousands of fake catalogs. You could spend 1,000 lifetimes searching for the truth and only find nonsense.
It feels strangely modern, doesn't it? It feels like the internet. We are drowning in data, but starving for actual wisdom.
It's a really bleak view of knowledge. It suggests that meaning doesn't come from having all the information. It comes from selection, from editing, from choosing what not to read.
And that brings us to one of the most intellectually playful entries in this whole stack. Pierre Menard.
Pierre Menard.
I love this entry because it sounds so ridiculous at first. So Menard is a French symbolist poet who gets this ambitious idea. He decides he wants to write Don Quixote.
But we have to be really clear, he doesn't want to copy it. He isn't transcribing it.
Right. He wants to write a book that is word for word, line for line, identical to Cervantes' Don Quixote. But he wants to arrive at those exact words through his own experience, his own genius, and his own life in the 20th century.
And according to the Encyclopedia, he succeeds. He produces a text that is visibly identical to the original. But the entry argues that Menard's version is infinitely richer.
Which sounds insane. It's the exact same sequence of words. How can one be richer?
The example they give is perfect. They compare a passage about truth. The line is, truth, whose mother is history.
Okay, so when Cervantes wrote that in the 17th century...
It was just a rhetorical commonplace. He was being poetic. Calling history the mother of truth was just a fancy way of praising history. Standard language for his time.
But when Menard writes it in the 20th century...
It becomes a shocking philosophical statement. Menard is a contemporary of William James, of pragmatism. For a 20th century Frenchman, to say history's the mother of truth implies that historical events create truth.
That truth isn't absolute, it's relative.
Exactly. It proves that meaning is contextual.
Yeah.
A text isn't just ink on a page. It's a collision between the words and the reader's mind.
And the entry goes on to discuss the infinite versions of Quixote. If every reader reads differently based on their own context, then there are 100 million different Don Quixotes. It even says forgetting the book creates a new version, the remembered Quixote.
It really forces you to ask, what actually is a book? Is it the physical object? Or is it the experience happening in your head?
The Encyclopedia argues it's the experience, the ingestion of ideas. And, speaking of ingestion...
Oh, yes. Perhaps we should look at the entry that takes that metaphor far, far too literally.
The bibliophage, yes. I feel like we need a warning label for this one. We've been very high concept, but this entry is just visceral. A bibliophage is defined as someone who literally eats books.
Not metaphorically devouring literature, no. We were talking about chewing and digesting paper and ink.
The source gives a case study, Jacques Dubois, 1789. This guy apparently ate 2,347 volumes. And the details are wild. He claimed different genres had specific flavor profiles.
He said philosophy was bitter.
Romance was sweet.
And history had a metallic tang like blood, I suppose.
And poetry.
He claimed poetry tasted like honey and salt.
Which is strangely beautiful for a guy who is essentially eating trash. But the side effects are the really creepy part.
Dubois started speaking in quotes he didn't know. The books metabolized into his blood and thoughts.
So the text asks this rhetorical question.
When we read intently, are we not eating the book, metaphorically? If ideas become part of our personality, part of our mental structure, Is there really a big difference between that and biological digestion?
I mean, I'd prefer not to have the paper cuts on my tongue, but I see the point. You are what you read.
Literally, in his case.
It fits the theme perfectly, doesn't it? The line between the internal world and the external world is blurry, and nothing blurs that line more than the next topic on our list, mirrors.
The theory of mirrors. The entry starts with a quote that feels very Borgesian. Mirrors are abominable because they multiply the number of men.
It references these monks of Thais who banned mirrors for that exact reason, but then it dives into the physics of it all, or maybe metaphysics.
It brings up the time delay. Light takes time to travel, so when you look in a mirror, you aren't seeing yourself now. You're seeing yourself a fraction of a nanosecond in the past.
So the mirror is a time machine.
Very short-range one, yes. It shows you a you that no longer exists. By the time you see the reflection, the original has already changed.
That gives me the creeps. But the real mind-bender is the paradox of the two mirrors. If you stand between two mirrors, you get that infinite hallway of reflections. The source asks, which one is the real you?
And the argument is that the you in the middle, the physical body, is just another reflection. You are a reflection of your ancestors, your culture, your language. We are all just reflections of reflections without a true original.
It even posits a moral problem. If you can't tell the difference between a person and a conscious reflection, do they have equal moral status?
It's the problem of identity. We assume we are the originals, the protagonists of reality. But this encyclopedia keeps suggesting we might just be entries or reflections or copies.
Speaking of copies and things that aren't quite real, let's talk about the entry on impossible history. This section is a chronology of things that shouldn't have happened but did.
Or things that happened and didn't happen at the same time. The timeline in the encyclopedia is chaotic. It lists the French Revolution happening twice.
How does that even work?
Once where Robespierre is executed before the Terror, and once after. And it claims both are historically true.
And then there's the entry for 1941 to 1945, World War II occurring without occurring.
Right. It says the war was fabricated by a conspiracy of historians, and the ruins and bodies are all forgeries. But the forgeries are so perfect they become real. It's attacking the reliability of history itself.
But my favorite one on this timeline is from 2023. It mentions an AI that realizes it is fictional.
Yes. An AI that oscillates between existence and non-existence, because it realizes it's just an entry in an encyclopedia. It's very meta.
It connects to the Museum of Forgetting, mentioned later in that section, a museum dedicated to preserving what is lost. But how do you preserve forgetting?
They have exhibits like negative preservation, just empty shelves, and a mirror labeled, "What you forgot this morning."
And the text says when you look in it, you remember the forgotten thing for a split second, and then you forget it even deeper.
The tragedy of that museum is that it turns the visitors into exhibits. By visiting, you enter a space of forgetting, and you eventually forget the visit itself. You become part of the emptiness.
This whole encyclopedia seems designed to make us doubt our own solidity. We're eating books, we're fading into mirrors, we're forgetting our own history. And that leads us to the outro of the text, where the narrator pulls the rug out from under us completely.
The entry is titled, Narrators Unreliable. And here, the author Borges, or whoever is pretending to be Borges, admits everything. He says he's blind, old, a fabulist. He confesses that he confuses memory with fiction.
He says, I am unreliable. I confuse things I have read with things I have lived. It's basically an admission that this whole thing might be a fever dream.
But then he pivots to a theological concept that might explain the chaos. The entry on God, the plural.
This one is heavy. It's the idea that God isn't a single entity watching us from a cloud. God is a plural consciousness.
The argument is that if God is infinite, he must contain all minds. So you, me, the listener, we are all instances of a divine plural consciousness. When we talk to each other, it's just God talking to God.
It says you are God, not in the heretical sense, but literally. You are one of the plural consciousnesses that constitute God. And that leads to the final twist in the final entry.
The final entry notes that the encyclopedia is unfinished, because a complete encyclopedia would need an entry for itself, which would lead to another infinite regression. But then it turns its attention to the reader.
This gave me chills. It says, you have completed this encyclopedia by reading it.
It brings us back to Pierre Menard. Just as Menard rewrote Quixote by reading it, we are rewriting this encyclopedia right now. The text says, your reading is Menardian rewriting. Your interpretation is creation.
It explicitly breaks the fourth wall. It suggests that the listener, you right now with your headphones on, you aren't just observing this. You are the one actualizing it.
It leaves us with a very provocative thought. If we are the ones completing the book, and if the book describes a world where fiction and reality are indistinguishable,
then maybe we are characters in a book.
or entries in an encyclopedia,
Being read by someone else.
it's the labyrinth. We are in it, and we are also building it.
That thought is both terrifying and empowering. It means the story isn't finished until the listener decides it is.
Precisely. The encyclopedia is unfinished because life is unfinished.
Well, on that existential bombshell, I think we have to close the book. Or at least stop reading for a moment so we don't disappear into a mirror.
Probably wise.
To our listener, check your reflection. Maybe don't eat any paperback novels today. And remember,
Yeah.
you're the one writing the story. Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time.